Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Thursday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you thinking of? This is the best channel on YouTube. Smash the subscribe button and click the little notification bell so you never miss this perfection. So James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is getting rave reviews. At one point with 40 reviews it had 100%. It's now at 98% with just under 100 reviews. That's absolutely fantastic. But, and this is a big but, we focus and put too much on reviews these days, whether they're positive and negative. You'll be surprised if you go back 40 years to the films that you see as great films today, from the 70s, 80s, 90s and early noughties. Some of them were so badly reviewed, but today they're seen as classics. That's interesting. But with the internet today, everything is analysed so much, so people will judge a film on its reviews. But it has no clarity in terms of box office. Birds of Prey was positively reviewed yet again. The bestest ever, right? Just like this film. The bestest ever. The best DCEU movie. In my opinion, as much as I love James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, it is not the best DCEU movie or the best movie ever made, but it's a really good film. Here is my new rankings, including James Gunn's The Suicide Squad for the DCEU. Number 1, Wonder Woman 2017. Number 2, Man of Steel. Number 3, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. Number 4, Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Number 5, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad with a new entry. That's why I'm putting it. If you've seen the film as well, I think you'll agree with me, although most of you are putting it in your top number 1 of the DCEU movies. I do not agree. So number 5 for me. Number 6, Aquaman. Number 7, Shazam. Number 8, David Ayer's 2016 Suicide Squad. Yes, the Suicide Squad is there, above Wonder Woman 1984, and then Birds of Prey. That is my ranking of the current DCEU movies. But next year is a big leveler. Can Peacemaker topple Wonder Woman 2017? Can Matt Reeves' Earth 2 entry of the Batman topple Wonder Woman, or even get in my top 3? We'll have to wait and see. Black Adam, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and of course the most anticipated DCEU movie in years, Andy Muschietti's The Flash movie. Then we've got the Green Lantern. We've got the Green Lantern HBO Max streaming show coming, which should be awesome as well. Next year is a huge year. James Gunn movies are like drinking a can of Red Bull. When you've seen a James Gunn movie, like when you drink a can of Red Bull, you feel $1 million. I remember after the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm traipsing around with that music, and I'm walking around like Chris Pratt, thinking, I'm the man, yeah, and I'm dancing around and I'm so cool. That's what James Gunn makes you feel after you've watched one of his movies. He's always done it. He's an entertainer. He wants to entertain you. And James Gunn's The Suicide Squad really does do this. I mean, there's a scene, a hilarious scene between Bloodsport and Peacemaker where, and this is a spoiler. Do you want a spoiler? A little spoiler? Go away if you don't want to know about this. But basically, there's a moment when they're trying to prove who the better marksman is. So they start shooting. To see, they're actually shooting people, the enemy, to see who's the best. And it's a hilarious moment. So it's not a big spoiler, so it's a great movie. Now, we have to talk about box office, which is hugely more important than having a huge metric score on Rotten Tomatoes and other metric sites. Now, reviews and metric scores are important because there's a positive vibe to that. And that can lead the audience to go to see a movie. But as with Birds of Prey, as I've already mentioned, that didn't seem to make much of a difference. Why didn't people go out to see Birds of Prey? It's weird. Did the geeks just not trust the movie? Everyone said the reason that the first Suicide Squad in 2016 nearly made 800 million was because of Harley Quinn. Why didn't people rush out to see Harley Quinn? Because they saw the trailers. They knew what they were going to get, and they were disappointed. This is the truth. They saw the Birds of Prey, and they weren't the Birds of Prey they've read in the comics. People didn't rush out to see it because they knew what they were going to get. There's a difference with this film, because Gunn's been telling everyone who will listen that this movie is like a sequel to the John Ostrander graphic novels, which is very interesting. It's more of a sequel to the graphic novels than it is to David Ayer's 2016 movie. But although it's a sequel to that movie, not a direct sequel, because it's using some of its characters. So I've read a lot of these reviews, and they're very positive. In fact, if you read one of them, you read them all. Listen, I don't put much basis on critics and journalists. I don't trust them. But most of the stuff they say about the movie is quite accurate. It works, it's entertaining, it's brilliant. But as I say, let's talk about box office, because I think this is very vital now. Now, a lot of people are saying right now with the pre-ticket sales, we're looking at a 25 million opening weekend. This is so much lower than the Black Widow opening weekend. Now listen, we are in the middle of a pandemic. I won't be using that as an excuse. The R rating isn't an excuse, because basically they'll let anyone see an R rating most of the time, depending where you're going. So if you want to see this movie, you can, but just be warned. It's very bloody, it's very violent, and there's a lot of sexual swear words. Excuse me. There are a lot of sexual swear words, so you might not want your children to go and see this movie. I would imagine that many teenagers will be going to see this, even though maybe they're too young to see this. So if people want to see this, they will see this. I believe this film will make much more than 25 million. My target is about 40 to 45 million, and I think that will be fantastic. A lot of people trying to attack the 25 million opening weekend at this moment in time. Well, you don't know it's going to make 25 million. You don't know how many random people are just going to walk into the movie theatre. It will be more than 25 million. People call Shazam a flop. Shazam and Man of Steel made the same profit. Shocking, isn't it? Around the same profit. Man of Steel made 650 million, but it cost a lot more to make. Shazam didn't cost much to make, under 100 million, and it made over 300 million. It made about the same profit as Man of Steel. Have a think about that. But these people think because Man of Steel made more, that Man of Steel made more of a profit. It didn't. So when you call Shazam a flop, you are making a fool of yourself. And I see a lot of this propaganda again yesterday. And it's not going to work. Your hot takes are not going to work. James Gunn's already got his sequel with Peacemaker. He's already told a publication that the next movie he does for DC will shock everyone. There are already plans for more James Gunn at WB and DC. Let me tell you what James Gunn thinks of WB. WB took him on when he was on the floor, when he was fired from Disney. And I don't think, if WB didn't come in for him, I don't think he would have been rehired at Disney. So he really appreciates them. And he'll be back to do more, the freedom that they've given him. He really appreciates that. And so, James Gunn, The Suicide Squad is a really good film. And in terms of reviews and critical and journalistic opinion, it's through the roof. Everyone's happy with this movie. But a lot of normies have already been able to see this movie through special screenings. And they're very happy with this film again. Some DC and DCEU fans are very happy with this film. What does some of the Snyderverse stands say is irrelevant, because they're biased. They're going to see this film to shit on it. So if you're triggered by what those people say, just ignore them, because everybody else is ignoring them now. They're an irrelevance. Let's be absolutely clear. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad will probably make nowhere near the 2016 Suicide Squad, even though it's a superior movie. But let me tell you this, I have a soft spot for 2016 Suicide Squad. I really like it. And comparing it in your reviews to the 2016 Suicide Squad is lazy journalism. It's like saying Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is superior to Justice League. It's not a compliment. It's obvious, right? It's like saying a packet of fruit pastels is better than a pile of turd. It's not a compliment. So these kind of comparisons with James's Suicide Squad and the first Suicide Squad, as I say, are lazy journalism. James's movie is high and vast and more superior. It has nuance, it's funny, it's entertaining. You will really enjoy it. If you love movies and you go to the movies to be entertained, this movie is full of personality, great action, blood, gore. It's really like the old-fashioned kind of war movies. And there is a moral little message here about who really is the enemy, the villain of this film. And that's an interesting kind of piece of nuance, and it'd be interesting to see people's reaction to that. Some will not like that. I think this film is a lot more controversial than some people have suggested. I think you will see a lot of controversy in this film, and I'm not going to spoil that for you. But the characterizations, Peter Capaldi is amazing. He literally is the thinker. He's basically the Suicide Squad's Malcolm Tucker. He swears a lot, you know, he's fun, he's brilliant. He's Capaldi, but not the Dr. Capaldi, the Malcolm Tucker Capaldi. So if you like Malcolm Tucker and you like him being referenced in other media, you're going to love him as the thinker in this movie. He is brilliant. But at the end of the day, everyone's brilliant in this movie. I've heard lots of people say Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie is the best thing in this movie. There's a moment when she's shooting people, and instead of seeing blood and bullets, she sees candy and flowers. Now this is a very interesting moment by James Gunn, because he's going into the mental psychosis and what she sees, but also you could deem it as him making an excuse for what she does. Maybe he's trying to say that's what she sees when she kills people. That makes an excuse for her actions. I like the visuality of what he does here, but I don't like it because it does seem it's an excuse for her actions. But mostly, I love this movie. It is a great entry for the in the DCEU. As I say, it's my number 5 in my new DCEU rankings. But we have to be prepared for this box office, because it's going to be interesting. Because at the end of the day, as I said the other day, the Suicide Squad is not a top tier IP. It never was. What the film did in 2016, nearly 800 million, is amazing. And that's because people thought the Joker was going to be front and centre in this movie, and they thought we were really going to get the Joker and Harley love story. That's why this film made a lot of money. But also, everyone says 2016, Suicide Squad 2016 is crap, but people must have gone back to watch it repeatedly to make that type of money, as we've already discussed. So I'm very intrigued about the box office of this movie and what it's going to make. Rumours are 25 million. I think it will do more. I'd love your projections for the opening box office domestically in America, and how much do you think it will make globally in its opening weekend, and how much do you think it's going to make after its total global run. Now, I predicted 500 million. I may have been a bit ambitious with my predictions. It's going to be, as I say, very interesting how much this movie is going to make, and also very interesting what project James Gunn's got next. Remember, you must wait to the end of this movie. It is so important you watch this post-credits scene. Some of you in the UK will be going to see this film in the weekend. I would love to see you tag me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad on my timeline. No DMs, please. And let me know what you thought of this movie. As I say, this film is a blast. I have no issue with this film whatsoever. It was absolutely fantastic, and every character, most characters, were done justice. I think they could have done more with Captain Boomerang. If I'm honest, I was a little bit disappointed because Jai Courtney is so great in the first film. One of the highlights of the first film is Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang. I'd love him to play alongside Ezra Miller or even Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin has a big future with the multiverse strategy. But really, at the end of the day, the Suicide Squad was always a kind of footstep to the main event, which is this multiverse strategy, rebooting the multiverse in the Flash movie. That's where we're headed. So, we have The Suicide Squad, which basically is a one-off piece of fun. Then we have Peacemaker, which is connected to The Suicide Squad. You know, maybe not a one-off piece of fun. I expect more seasons of that. We'll have to wait and see. A very interesting project. The more I hear about it, you know, because it's surrounded in a big event and it's got a nice little small cast to it. And then we go to Earth 2's, the DCEU Earth 2's, the Batman, directed and written by Matt Reeves. This is a very intriguing, exciting film for me. And as we head to the summer, we go to our second movie, which is Black Adam. Then we head to our third movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And then it's the big event that will change everything and catalogue many DC characters we've seen in live action when we were kids, in Arrowverse and in other interpretations. Ultimately, Barry Allen will reboot the multiverse. So I'm very excited for this film and how it changes the universe. So, things like The Suicide Squad. I don't think that WB think this movie is going to hit big. That's why they allowed it to be R-rated, right? Because an R rating is going to drop off your box office. Now, Joker movie didn't do this, but Joker movie had the privilege of having the Joker in it, right? So as I say, I expect James Gunn's The Suicide Squad to do something that Black Widow didn't, which is have rewatchability. So for example, if James Gunn's The Suicide Squad hits 40 to 50 million, which will be a great result from what we're hearing of 25 million right now, that will be brilliant, because that's not in the higher echelons of what Black Widow did in the opening weekend. But unlike Black Widow, that will put less pressure and maybe the drop-off won't be as big. It's very, very interesting with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad in terms of the financials and the box office. No one seems to be confident enough to project exactly what this film is going to do. You know, the studio has projected 36 to 60 million. That's a very interesting figure, from 36 to 60. It means they simply don't know. Or maybe they're under-projecting, so when it goes slightly higher, they can see, yeah, we're very pleased with this result. But this is when you need to listen to me. Right, one final time on this video. It doesn't really matter what this film makes. James Gunn's got his sequel in Peacemaker. He's going to get his next project. He's going to do projects for HBO unrelated to DC. He's in. You can't change the plan for the DCEU, for the next phase of the DCEU. Snyder is gone. It's finished. It's done. It's dusted. He is gone. He could have had his universe restored. He didn't want that. He chose revenge instead. He was offered a little place on HBO Max. He didn't want that. He wanted the keys to the kingdom. And ironically now, he's got a little corner on Netflix. And finally, Scott Stuber, one of the leaders over at Netflix, is really desperate to get Christopher Nolan's next movie. This is a very interesting thing to me because they've got Spielberg, they've got Snyder, and there's a lot of boasting going on over at Netflix. I don't think that Netflix is Christopher Nolan's favoured place to have his movies. Now, there's no question, in the next 5 years, I think we will see Netflix cinemas, Netflix movie theatres, and Prime Video movie theatres, Amazon movie theatres. This is where they're going. If they do that, they really can dominate the market. The problem is with Netflix and Amazon, their original content isn't that good and isn't that rewatchable. That's the problem. So the studios can still beat them. I think that still many people, many studios are talking to Christopher Nolan, including David Zaslav of Warner Discovery, a company that doesn't exist yet. I think with Jason Kilar going, a figurehead that Christopher Nolan has no time for the day because of the day and date decision earlier on this year, and Toby Emmerich for what he did with the DCEU, if those two figures can go, I think we can keep Christopher Nolan at Warner Brothers. And I know, again, the propaganda agents are really excited and screaming out, hey WB, you've lost Nolan. Well, we haven't lost him yet. But even if we do, he's not the only fucking director who can direct. There's plenty more great directors. Maybe we've seen the best that Christopher Nolan has got to give anyone. So it's interesting. But what nobody's talking in terms of Christopher Nolan is Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime now own the James Bond IP, something he's always wanted to be involved in. If he can get James Bond movies to continue to release in movie theatres, which I think is the case, then I think he's going to be interested, and that will be his next port of call. So look out for that. Have you seen James Gunn's The Suicide Squad yet? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, and the rest of the critics have? Let me know in the comments down below. Will you be going in the UK to see it later this weekend? Please let me know. And yes, please tag me on Twitter and let me know what you thought of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a step in the right direction for the DCEU and DC live action. Matt Reeves is a step in the right direction. Andy Muschietti is a really talented filmmaker. I can't wait to the Flash movie. I can't wait to Black Adam and the Gotham PD on HBO Max and the Green Lantern show and Peacemaker, and the Flash movie is just an exciting project to me and to all of us. There's so much to look forward to. So if people are being negative about the future of DC, just mute them and ignore them. And I will see you again in the next video. See you again soon. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you very much. See you later.